in this way, if he could, the tyrant's self-willed and swift downfall. In other words, the book's most shocking advice was ironic. Its author wore the mask of a helpful advisor, all the while knowing the folly of his own advice, hoping to ensnare rulers and drag them to their ruin. This explanation made sense of something that had bothered Pole while reading The Prince. Though Machiavelli was clearly a man of uncommon intelligence, some of his maxims seemed to show, as the cardinal put it, a crass stupidity. It seemed obvious to Pole that a prince who wins power through fear won't achieve security for himself or his state. The prince claimed to put hard political facts ahead of moral ideals. But as a handbook on how to secure power, its advice was flagrantly unrealistic. Machiavelli's self-proclaimed realism, his book's main selling point, was a fraud. And Thomas Cromwell, Henry VIII, and England were among its first victims. Cromwell had taken The Prince at face value, Pole insisted, imbibing its devilish doctrines in the belief they were highest prudence, and in doing so had walked straight into Machiavelli's trap. If the writer were alive, he'd be laughing at his handiwork. The results, though, were no laughing matter. England in 1539 was far along the road to perdition, and other Christian monarchs might soon go the way of Henry, should they or their counselors fall under Machiavelli's spell. "Mark this well, rulers," Pole warned, "beware of this two-faced writer. For it is the aim of his doctrine to act like a drug that causes princes to go mad, making them attack their own people with the savagery of the lion and the wiles of the fox." Pole was the first of many readers to demonize Niccolò Machiavelli and to associate his name with the unscrupulous practices of men like Thomas Cromwell. The Prince as political poison, its author as a cunning fox, Old Nick, Satan's emissary, cold-blooded destroyer of kingdoms and of true religion. These images of Machiavelli and his writings soon came to play a big role in the propaganda wars stirred up by the Reformation. The conjurers of this demonic Machiavelli were mostly men of religion, both Catholic and Protestant. The enemies they branded as Machiavelli's disciples challenged traditional relations between church and state. Some were devout Christians like Cromwell, who sought to weaken political ties with the Church of Rome. Others called for a new, more secular kind of politics. Some of these 16th and 17th century challengers fought back by defending the Florentine against their opponent's smear campaign. And in this way, a very different Machiavelli, this one altogether human and humane, joined his evil double on the political stage. His champions found their undevilish Machiavelli mainly in his discourses and Florentine histories, much longer books than the fast-paced Prince. This Machiavelli was a thoroughgoing Republican, a eulogist of democracy. His aim was to defend the rule of law against corrupt popes and tyrants, and he sought to uphold high moral standards, not lower them to fit the gritty realities of political life. True, his morality came from ancient writers such as Livy, Plutarch, and Xenophon, rather than Christian scriptures, and he loved to ridicule the empty moral platitudes of his day. But he never wanted to sever politics from morality. He simply wanted to put morality on firmer, purely human foundations. But how could this image of a virtuous Machiavelli be squared with everything he says in The Prince? His defender's answer was that the Machiavelli of The Prince is a master ironist, a dissimulator who offers advice that he knows to be imprudent. On this point, though in nothing else, they agreed with Cardinal Pole. But while Pole thought that Machiavelli dissimulated so that he could poison princes' minds and drive them mad, his admirers believed he did so only to unmask their deceits and their secret lusts for power. When he writes that Pope Alexander VI never did anything or ever thought of anything but how to deceive men, Machiavelli seems to praise the pontiff's obsessive duplicity, but really exposes his pretensions of piety. When he describes how Cesare Borgia scapegoated his own governor, having him